A former betting agent, Gibson owns a farm at Warhope on the New South Wales north coast, where for a while he bred racehorses. He's also a partner in 2 Sydney stores, one of which is a boutique owned by his eldest daughter, Susan. To relax, he plays golf very well. He's on the course at least 3 or 4 times a week, and he uses the game as a mental discipline to prepare for a big match. But it's football which takes up most of his time. Jack Gibson is an absolute perfectionist. He spends hours watching videotapes of every move and every tackle in every game. And that perfectionism, that attention to detail, has often made him highly critical of referees.
I can understand how they can make a mistake, but when they start to put them back to back, too regular for me, I'm not going to accept any bad decisions, but I can understand them making them. But as I said, once they start putting them back to back, I'm going to say something about it.
2 years ago, badly stung by his criticism of refs and his complaints about the game's management, the New South Wales Rugby League attempted to fine him $15,000 for bringing the game into ill repute. Gibson fronted at the hearing with 2 lawyers, who told the league that the fine was unconstitutional, and the league was forced to back down. Ironically, a few years earlier, it was Gibson who lent former league president Kevin Humphreys $34,000 to cover his gambling debts. Despite the publicity and the trouble that it's caused him, Jack Gibson remains highly critical of the game's financial organisation. For example, his explanation of the fact that the majority of Sydney Rugby League clubs are losing money is quite simple.
Atrocious management in a lot of cases. There's 14 clubs in competition, and I'd say if you put 7 of their club secretaries up to be re-evaluated by their own club, out of that 14, 7 would get the sack. The only thing that's keeping them there is they've got healthy long-term contracts, and it cost the club too much initially to get rid of them. A lot of clubs are making money in spite of themselves with the poker machine, and then a lot of things started to happen. They increased the poker machine tax, and they increased this, and the wages went up, and unions got involved, so you had to run a much tighter ship than normally, and that happened in a pretty short period, and a lot of clubs couldn't handle that.
So they need pure management skills is what's required, business management skills.
Well, people can make decisions and not frightened to spit them out.
What about yourself? You're pretty good at business.
Well, I got a job.
That job, of course, is getting an injury-plagued Parramatta through to the grand final. But, unlike his unforgiving approach to the game's finances and its referees, his approach to coaching is amazingly relaxed.
We'll go into the bus and have a team talk, just the players, okay? And we'll discuss our plus and minus issues of last week's game, and we're going to watch the first 20 minutes of our performance in the second half. That's all. So we get rid of the bad news straight away and worry about the good news next Sunday. So we'll have 20 minutes in the bus for the first 20 minutes in the second half. Our kick-off returns certainly need some adjustments, so we're going to practice the simple thing, our kick-off returns. And the way we're going, getting 70-odd points scored against us in 3 games, we should be putting more practice into it.
He expects his players to get themselves match fit before the season even begins. He concentrates on tactics and motivation.
I've got to show him that I'm trying to make him successful, and he's got to show me that too, that he's trying to help me succeed in the job I'm trying to do.
So what do you expect from your players?
Well, I expect the same as they expect from me, that I'll work at my job and do the best job of I'm capable of. If you get a very talented athlete, you can't tell him how to play the game. That's where you can get into problems if you try and overcoach him. You can't tell him what to do. If he's a talented player, he's got that natural instinct to do things on the spur of the moment, but might be in the game plan. So I don't want to take anything away from him and say, look, when we're in this situation, we do this. The only thing I tell him, if you see some daylight, take all you got. And it's up to the offence to get to you.
It's an approach obviously appreciated by team captain Steve Edge.
He's an innovator. He's not afraid to try things. He'll have a punt on certain areas of the game, but usually they're pretty well calculated risks, and quite often they'll come up trumps as well. he also relies a lot on players themselves, and he'll quite often ask myself or Mick Cronin or Ray Price or something like that what we think of a certain situation, which gives us a great sense of responsibility, and we're very pleased that he thinks that much of us to do it.
Is he a hard taskmaster?
No, he'd be the easiest going coach I've ever played under.
Accepting then that Jack Gibson is really a pretty easy bloke to get along with, the question is, why does he have such a tough, almost bad-tempered image?
Jack isn't exactly the laughing cavalier, so I suppose that most photographs of him are fairly staid photos, and even sometimes a bit grumpy looking. But he doesn't pretend to be what he isn't, and if you took a photograph of him when he was angry, well, he would be angry. He certainly wouldn't smile. I think probably his comments have been, to some people, harsh in some respects, but I think they've been truthful as far as he's concerned. And so if you put a grumpy photograph with a harsh statement, you get an image of a man that's perhaps not projecting a very pleasant personality.
Well, what's he really like?
He likes being with people that he can identify with, and he's a good father. He's always been a very good provider for his family, and he's a pretty kind person, really.
Just like you might get some television work.
Obviously a life evenly divided between business, the maelstrom of football politics, and the ulcer-inducing tension of winning grand finals is bound to make even the most patient man a little taciturn. But no matter what, when the pressure builds and the critics are yapping at his heels, for Jack Gibson, there's always the peace of that empty, uncomplicated golf course.
Andrew Saul reports